Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, depends where you are. We start today new but old format of our events. So welcome on our Cloud Detox. We will talk today, and not only today, about different aspects of clouds. Today we will talk about security in cloud. So quite interesting topic, quite let's say, very popular buzzwords today, right? Security and clouds. We have prepared for you two talks, very interesting one about different aspects of security in the clouds, and also a discussion panel where we have three great panelists from let's say, three different representatives of clouds, and they will discuss about the security in their cloud of choices. Right. So our first talk is prepared by Marcin Niemiec, who will tell us a little bit about external authentication, how to bypass it in Kubernetes. So even if Kubernetes is not like, let's say, cloud tools or only cloud tool, right? It's quite often used this way. I would say majority is used this way. So it is relevant for us. Now, I'm bringing to you Marcin. Hello, Marcin. Thank you for joining us and willing to share your really great knowledge about this stuff. And yeah, if you have any questions, please put it in the chat. After the talk, we will pass this question to Marcin, and hopefully Marcin will have a great answers for you. So Marcin, the stage is yours, and good luck. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Pawel. Hello, everyone. So as Pawel mentioned, the talk would be about the Kubernetes and the external authentication. There is definitely the case with the cloud because it's the easiest way to run Kubernetes. It's in the cloud as the managed service. So about me, I am a lead security engineer in the EPAM. I'm mostly interested in application security. This is my blog address and this is my Twitter. And here is something that I like doing after the hour, so riding the bikes with my daughter. Okay, so something I think broke on the slide, but yeah, hope it won't be the issue. So the problem that I want to describe is the corner case for some specific setup, but it doesn't mean it is not important or it is wrong on purpose. It is some niche topic that is poor documented, and you can find more of those kind of problems in the different cloud solution. For example, in the Apache AP6, I have found the CVE. So the bug that was that is the number with the CVE, and yeah, so it seems that there is some problem, and I want to present it to you. Okay, so what is the architecture that we want to implement? So the first thing we can see that there is a user, there is the authentication service, there is a public service and protected service. So the public service is accessible by any user. So the user can go to the service and request any resource. But the protected service, as the name, it is protected by some kind of the authentication. And therefore, there's the authentication service that needs to decide if the authentication is required for the call, for example, the REST call, because we are talking here about the REST, For the REST call, is it required because we are accessing protected service, or maybe it is not required because we are accessing the public service? So authentication service is centralized place to decide if the request is allowed or not. Okay, and here is how it looks step by step. So the first step is that the user is requesting the public service /public resource, and then the authentication service permits all those requests to the public service, and then the user gets public data. This is just some kind of the example. So quite straightforward. But what happens if we want to access the protected service? So this time the user is requesting protected service and protected resource, but needs to put the XAPI key, secret key, to authenticate that he is who he is telling that is, and the authentication service is deciding on that. And if the XAPI key is correct, then the access to the protected service is granted, and protected data is returned. Okay, but there is also this is the positive example, and there is also negative case when there is 401 authorization required. So the user is requesting for the protected resource, but the authentication service is returned 401. Yeah, typical when there is a bad API key, or maybe there is a no API key, stuff like that. Okay, so what is next? Now we have some building blocks, because we want to implement that, and we need some building blocks. For many of you, you may be familiar with the Kubernetes, but there could be some people here that don't know what the Kubernetes is and what are all those building blocks. So let's start describing them. This is very high-level overview, and yeah, let's see. Kubernetes. The Kubernetes is, for the simplification, deployment platform. It can make easy to configure and run containers. This is enough for today for us to understand what is the container. So this is the place when we can configure and run containers. So the pod is the smallest deployable execution unit in Kubernetes. In our case, we can think about it as the container plus configuration, and this is something that is running. So we want to run container. Okay, Kubernetes will run a pod for us. So what is the ingress? Ingress is the API object. So ingress is not something existing, but this is API object. So this is the configuration. So ingress is the configuration that Kubernetes use to serve our container. Yeah. So Kubernetes is running containers in pods, but we want to make those containers visible. So we need the ingress. So the ingress is just the recipe for exposing pods to the outside world. And then we have the service. The service is just the logical abstraction. I will not use it too much. I just want to show it to you. Yeah, that you know that it is there. Yeah, because it will appear in our example configuration file. Okay, and now ingress versus ingress controller. So the two names that are very similar, ingress and ingress controller. So the ingress is the API object, as we define, API object in Kubernetes. So this is just part of the Kubernetes configuration. But the ingress controller is something runtime. Yeah, so in that case, it is the reverse proxy, for example, the Nginx. Yeah, so in our case, that would be the Nginx, in fact. Okay, so let's move next. Yeah, so this is the implementation of the architecture. Of course, there could be many implementations. It could be done differently, but this is how it was in the one project that I was assessing. Yeah, so it's taken from the real life project, not something that I made up on purpose. And this is also something that you can find in some example files and maybe even in your project. Okay, so we have Kubernetes. This is this box. We have the pods. So the box around the services. Of course, what is missing here is the service box. Yeah, but this is the detail that we don't need to have. And then we have the ingress. I still don't know what to put here. If I should put here ingress or ingress controller, because it is not that straightforward. But let's say let's leave here the ingress name. So okay, yeah. So the ingress is using something that is called external basic authentication. External basic authentication is a feature in the ingress controller that allows to ask a dedicated service for the authentication of the request. I will show it in a second. So it is here. Yeah. So this is this external basic authentication. So we have the ingress, and then the request is coming, and the ingress is asking authentication service. Is this request fine? Can I authenticate that call? Yeah. And the out service is returning yes or no. So for every incoming request, ingress is calling authentication service for out service for authentication. Yeah, and then we have the permits or rejected. That's it. Very simple, yet powerful, because it gives us centralized place. It is centralized place when we can make sure that all requests are coming, and we can make sure that there is a baseline security level for all the incoming requests. So this is, I would say, this is from the architecture, security architecture position is quite nice, yeah, because even if we have multiple services, multiple pods, all the requests that are coming through the ingress are still at least considered for the authentication. And then we can have some rules that that could help us maintain that. And yeah, and this feature is the feature that we will be trying to bypass. Yeah, so this is in this feature I have found the bug, the vulnerability that allows in some specific condition to make a bypass for that. Okay, and how does it look in detail? So we want to use this feature. So we want to use the external authentication in our ingress. How to do that? There is the annotation that we can use on the ingress. It is called ingress Kubernetes IO auth URL, and then we just put the URL to the auth service. So this URL that is, if you know Kubernetes, this URL probably seems familiar for you. This is the local cluster service default as the namespace and so on. So this is something. This is the URL that is just built by the Kubernetes, and then we have the paths that we are saying that we are exposing, and we are exposing two paths. One is for the public service, and one is from the protected service. So this is quite neat from the perspective of the configuration, because there is one auth URL, and then there is multiple services that are exposed. So there is one thing to consider: this rewrite target. So this is, if you know Kubernetes more than you need, then you know that this is just needed, yeah, to remove those prefixes, yeah, because yeah, this is something that is just needed. Okay, so and how to install that? We can do the installation on our local computer using the Minikube. So this is fine. So we are installing the Minikube, and then we can just run our application. So there is kubectl apply for the application. You will find this YAML file in the repository. I hope I put the link at the end. This repository. If not, I will do it in the chat somehow. So don't worry. I will give it to you. And then we just need to forward the port to make it local. Yeah, if I'm installing it on the Windows, so maybe I just needed to do it because of that. Maybe if you will use the Linux or the Mac, maybe you have some different requirements. Maybe this port forwarding won't be needed, or maybe it would be a bit different. Okay, and now let's verify our requirements. Yeah, because we have some requirements on the architecture. Yeah, so okay, so let's verify it. The first step, we are calling the public service public resource. We are getting the public data, so that's good. Then we are calling the protected service, and we are putting the XAPI key, and we are getting protected data, so it's good. And then we just need to verify the negative path. So we are asking for the protected service, but we are not giving an XAPI key. And we get 401. So looks good. Yeah. And now a little bypass. Yeah. So this is exactly how the bypass looks like. It's using the path traverser. So nothing really complex, but yet allow us to bypass and to get protected data. So let's see that. So we are calling. There is this in the SUR. I added the path as is, the option. It is needed because otherwise the SUR will normalize path. Yeah, and the thing is here to send not normalized path to the ingress control. Yeah, to the ingress nginx. And then what we are doing? So we are putting the public service first. Then we are doing // and then we are asking for the protected service protected. We can do the same thing, but with the slash in the middle that is URL encoded. This is just this is additional, I would say, case that sometimes is worth to check. Yeah, with this slash that is encoded, but it doesn't really change the output. The output is the same, protected data without the API access key. But you see here, when we are calling protected service, we need to put this API secret key. Yeah, so API XAPI key. So why is that we don't need to do it here? Why this very simple path traverser and just adding // break completely our requirements, our architecture? Yeah, this is nonsense. So let's go deeper. Let's see how this auth service is working and what is the contract between the auth service and the Kubernetes ingress nginx. So here's in very detailed way what is happening step by step. But I think I can leave it to you for self reading after the talk, because it is detailed, it's everything, but I just want to jump here. So what you see here is what it is the content of the request that ingress nginx is sending to the auth service. Okay, let's wait a bit. Let's come back to the slide. Yeah, so we are here. So there is an incoming request. And every incoming request, the ingress is sending something to the auth service. Yeah, and then the auth service is deciding on permitting or rejecting this request. And now what we are going to see and what we are going to analyze is what is ingress sending to this auth service. Yeah, so let's get back here and see that. Yeah, so there is some request ID, there is the host that is targeted, and there are two interesting headers. X original URL that is containing the app test public service // There are some methods. There is something, and there is wait a moment. My daughter just came here.
Sorry for this little break. Yeah, that's
Yeah, I'll get back. Yeah. So sorry for that.
Yep. Yeah, it's the working from home issue, right? So hopefully you can continue.
Yes, I can continue. No problem. So we see that there is x and from, so nginx ingress controller. So that's everything is fine. Then we see second interesting header, x of request redirect header. And it is saying, okay, it is without the host, but it is just the path public service dot protected service protected. So as you can see, the content of those headers are not normalized. Yeah, they are not normalized, and this is very important because this is exactly why we have this problem. We had some contract with the ingress nginx, and this contract is saying that when I'm sending something, the ingress is normalizing it. Yeah, because what ingress did, it normalized that. Yeah, you can see that we got the output data protected data. So it was not sent to the public service in the end, but it was sent to the protected service. So ingress normalized that path, yeah, and return us protected data because only this protected service could return us protected data. Public service couldn't. Yeah, public service couldn't return it for us. So it means that the ingress normalized that path, yeah, and we get protected data. But in the same time, it sends to the auth service not a normalized path, yeah, path that is not normalized. And this is something that is not included in any documentation. Yeah, they did not include that information that the content of those headers that you should base your decision in auth service is not normalized. And this is the gap that they have in their design, yeah, because as you can see at the second point, this is where exactly they are setting those headers. So this is code taken from the nginx template file from the source code of the ingress nginx, and they are setting the headers x original URL and x auth request redirect from the variable that is called request URI. And maybe some of you know this variable. So I have seen it before, but I didn't understand it. Yeah, and what is said that this variable is just the incoming URI with the argument. But it is not saying that it is normalized or not normalized. It is just saying that. So it is a very short description, and it doesn't really give a lot of the input. What could be what are the security measures taken to validate that input, to normalize it, or to do anything with that? Yeah, we don't know. We don't know just. So this is the problem. So one more time, the problem is that the ingress nginx is sending not normalized path, yeah, not normalized path to the auth service, but on the other hand, it is normalizing path for choosing the protected service, yeah, from this kind of the request. So you might ask, okay, but maybe I just did on purpose that's wrong. Yeah, maybe I because you can say, okay, this is everything. So of course I have contacted the Nginx team, the Ingress Nginx team, and so on. So what is interesting, the Nginx team. So I told them into the Nginx team that this request URI is poorly documented. Yeah, and it shouldn't work like that. They said no, that's your problem. You, as the developer of the auth service, because you developed that service, you need to take all the measures to make it secure. Yeah, that's true. That's fair. But on the other hand, they did not document that. So I asked myself, okay, maybe that's only me. Maybe only in my project they did something like that. No, that's not true. I have found the same problem in the Apache API6, and this is the CV that I mentioned previously, that they are using requested URI in the security sensitive context. I have found the Pomerium, so they are also using the this request URL path, which is the request URI variable. They are using it in the security context. In Authelia, they're doing the same basically. They all using the request URI in the way, and they are not securing that. Yeah, so it's not only my problem. This is not only my project problem on my own, but this is really happening. And okay, and we can say, but maybe the other ingress controllers doing the same. Maybe everyone is doing the same. Maybe this is not from that perspective. Maybe let's go there. So I have did on my blog the investigation there. Yeah, so I have checked multiple ingress controller that are run the multiple reverse proxies. So there's Traffic, for example. There is Azure proxy and Apache API6 that I mentioned. It is running on the Nginx, Skipper, Emissary, Kong, and F5 Nginx. So it turned out that only those based on the Nginx that are somehow vulnerable. So in the Apache API6, it was vulnerable, but it was fixed. With the Kong and F5, it is not directly vulnerable, but you can still write the custom plugin that is using this request URI variable. Yeah, so you can still use this variable on your own to write the custom plugin for the authentication, for example. So it's not good, but it's not bad either, I would say. What is very interesting is how the Emissary ingress controller that is based on the Envoy proxy, how they deal with that stuff. So they have very good documentation. First of all, they are talking about this risk, and they have a couple of options to explicitly be more or less vulnerable for that. And this is good approach, in my opinion. This is what I would expect from the Nginx to do from the start. Yeah, when I approach them, or maybe even that they know about it earlier, that they should document that there is this kind of design, and there is some specific risk of using this request URI variable. Yeah, they should document that. It shouldn't be like that they are putting this variable without any consideration, without any documentation in the security sensitive context, and they are just relying on the developers to find out about it. Yeah, but there is no really description of that. So it's even not, they even are not saying anything about the security by default, but this is just insecure by default. Yeah, because they don't provide any guidance here, and that's why those products, they made mistake, and they didn't know how to do it correctly. Yeah, so this is really bad, and the root cause for that is this bad design that I mentioned. Yeah, there are two contexts. The first context is when the ingress Nginx is normalizing path and choosing service, and there is a second context that with the external authentication service, when the same path is not normalized. And this is something that I have seen multiple times in the software when we are using the same value in two contexts, but not exactly the same. Yeah, there are some small differences that in some niche cases can do harm. Yeah, so this is something that we can remember from that. Also, to try to use always one input value in the different contexts with the same way. Yeah, not in the different ways. I hope it was clear. And okay, how to mitigate that? So mitigation, of course, defense in depth. We should validate, sanitize, and encode the context, all the inputs. Yeah, that's fine. But can you be really sure that you will do normalization of this URI the same way that the Nginx is doing that? Yeah, because if you want to get right now out of this situation in the way that the Nginx is saying you should, so you should normalize that path. But can you be sure that your implementation in your solution will be exactly the same that the Nginx is doing here? Yeah, because if not, then maybe there will be bypass for the fix that you will be doing. Yeah, because maybe there will be some very small niche case when you will be able to still bypass this normalization. Yeah, so that is the question that you should ask yourself. I think not. And the better way to do it is to use different approach. There is the variable in the ingress that you can use that is called service name. And this is how to use that service name, and this is how to set up a new set of headers to be used. And this X forwarded prefix with the service name is exactly the service name that is exactly the way that could save us here, because instead of relying on the paths, you will have here then the name of the service that will be chosen by the ingress. So that would be this public or protected service. Yeah, without you don't need to rely on the path anymore, but you will get exactly the name of the service that will be called. Yeah, so this is I would say this is the good solution if you want to get out of the situation. It also is a very simple one because you don't need to write any code for the normalization, as you can just use this variable of that will return you the service name that will be called. Yeah, so for the summary, check your project for using this X original URL and also for those headers, X auth request redirect header and request URI variable. So this X original URL header could be used in your project, because when I search it in the GitHub, there is a lot of usage of it. So people probably don't understand that in the conjunction with the Nginx, it can have some consequences. So don't trust the input, especially in the sensitive context. And here is the HackerOne report that I have for this finding, and you can read the whole story behind that and how hard it is to put it through the trash. But yeah. So now there is a time for the question, and let me see if we have still the time for it. So I think we have a few minutes. So Paweł, do we have any question?
Yeah, no questions yet, but I hope there will be some, because the topic is quite interesting and quite maybe surprising for many people. As you said, it's not documented anyway. It's quite a big hole, I would say. Do you maybe know, is this the same for like a Nginx as a package service, or it is only for the ingress?
So yes, the Nginx has the same features of this external authentication, because this what is in this ingress Nginx. It is just packet, let's say, some kind of wrapper for the module that is already in the self-hosted Nginx. So there is the same problem. If we are using external authentication in the as the module in the Nginx, you could have the same problem. I didn't test that, so I don't know exactly, but it might be or maybe not. Yeah, we would need to test that because there is this code, with this number 2. It is directly taken from the ingress Nginx, so those headers are set there. But still, if you somehow use this request URI variable in the security context, it could be a problem.
It's interesting. Thank you for the answer. So I don't see any questions. Maybe later, maybe not. We will see. I encourage you to ask questions, because without asking question, you will not have any answer. So ask questions. And for now, Marcin, thank you very much for your presentation. It was really, really great to see this, and it's quite surprising, I would say, that the tool like Nginx can have that kind of vulnerability. But yeah, it happens. Thank you again, Marcin. And yeah, right now we finished the first talk. And let's have a break. Let's consume this information. Look in panic in your Kubernetes clusters if you have Nginx there. And we will come back in 5 minutes with our discussion panel. So thank you very much, and see you very soon.
Okay, thank you all for listening, and yeah, talk to you later.
Thank you, and now, short break. See you in 5 minutes. Okay, I hope the break was good for you. Right now, we will have a discussion panel when we will touch topics this time really related to the cloud. And I mean to the cloud. Because as we said, Kubernetes is not necessarily only about the clouds, but I think most of the installations is there. We've got three great speakers, panelists, for our panel. So let me introduce them shortly to you. So thank you for joining us here in this panel. So we've got Volha with us. She will represent Azure and defend Azure against, for example, AWS. So AWS will be represented by Oleg, and they both will defend themselves or fighting with Ahmed, who is representing GCP. So thank you again for joining us. And yeah, let's have a very short introduction, if you may. So a couple of words about yourselves, starting with Volga.
Hello, my name is Olga. I've been working at EPAM for more than 5 years already as a system engineer. Currently working, my area of interest is Azure Cloud, Azure DevOps. So I will try to protect it today.
Thank you very much. Oleg, how about you?
Hello. Yeah, my name is Oleg. I'm at EPAM for 2.5 years and working with AWS for 7 or 8 years. I think I don't remember exactly. I know I cannot say like 100% all the white papers about securities, but I will do my best, especially to protect against GCP and Azure. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, and thank you for joining us. Ahmed, last but not least, please tell about yourself.
Sure. Just like GCP, I'm the new kid on the block. I'm Ahmed. I'm a system engineer. I've been with EPAM for about 6 months. I've been working for Google and GCP for about 3 years in different practices. And hopefully I can present my case to justify why Google is the best.
All right, thank you. Let's see. So let's start with a little bit more generic topic, I would say. So very often we hear that we are going to cloud. Cloud is secure by default, right? The cloud provider is taking care about security. So I don't need to care. I would just do my coding. Right? Why this is wrong or correct?
May I start, maybe?
Yes, you can, of course.
Yeah, okay. I totally sure that all the cloud providers provide really good solutions to secure resources and data. But if you won't use those solutions, you will never be protected. If you just deploy your resources out of the box without any additional care about the security, enable by default all the accesses that is possible, don't protect your identity and stuff like this, you are definitely in trouble, even if you are in cloud that is by default secure. So you need to use those tools that are provided by cloud. Use it smart. Analyze your environment over the latest security problems and vulnerabilities and risks all the time, because even if you deploy it once, deploy it safely, it won't be safe for all the time. And in this case, Microsoft Azure has cool solutions for this, like Defender. We probably can start with Security Center, like a free solution that will analyze your existing environment over the common policies applied over the organization and provide you just report about it. And this is the good start where you can start and check if you use provided tools correctly. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Olga. Oleg, what answer for this AWS?
Well, in case of AWS, it's going the first one, and they have 3 pillars how you can make it secure. They for the best practices, you have 3 pillars. It's security, identity, and compliance. And according to that one, without this, you cannot start actually to develop. And usually they have at the beginning this kind of button where you are starting your sandbox and you need to cover all these features. But the first one, for example, for identity and access management, usually they are providing the blog, even AWS blog, for technique for writing least privilege IAM policies, because it's like the beginning and you need to understand how you should share these rights between all your users and all your resources. The second one, it's infrastructure protection, but I think it's mostly going to the high level when application is going to run. And there you can understand how AWS is operating and how they are protecting you with the best practices for DDoS resiliency and any kind of infrastructure protection as AWS WAF and infrastructure security reference architecture. So you can find it there. About data protection, so you will have introduction to the cryptographic details of AWS KMS and data classification secure cloud adoption. So this information is totally free and it's available from the scratch when you are starting your application. If you want to run even some small application, so you will not start it without any kind of intro to IAM policies as the first one. And after that, some small protection, some small security workshops just to how to secure your application. But of course, if you are coding and you are just writing all these passwords inside your application as a, everywhere, so it's not good practice. But I think we can go on and go after GCP introduction. Thank you.
Yes, we will do it. So Ahmed, why GCP is competitive here?
Sure. So just like AWS and Azure, we both agree that deploying anything without due diligence will result in catastrophic failure. What added for Google, pretty much you can rely that your infrastructure is managed by them, but you have to defend your own application security and maintain it. The difference Google provides in functionality, for example, we have Cloud Security Command Center. It's a one-stop shop, a centralized visibility and control center. It can, for newbies, scan storage and buckets for sensitive information, scan for vulnerabilities, fix misconfigurations and compliance violations such as cross-site scripting, does your threat detection and threat prevention, and creates the compliance reports on the go. Also, for people who want to go through the managed route, there is a one-click coverage that turns on managed scans to automatically discover web apps running on Google Kubernetes engine, Google Compute engines, and Google App engines. Additional to that, and the fun never stops with Google. Event threat detection actually helps you detect threats in your log stream in real time. So this is an added feature that Google comes on top with, and we can continue with the rest of the tools further on with the panelists.
About let's say real-time monitoring, we will talk about it because this is quite important element. But I would like to start with the infrastructure first, and as probably we all know that the most misconfigurations of cloud services comes with the storages, security groups, and it's common knowledge, right? So, in your opinion, why it's happening all the time? Because it's not something what is missed, right? Right now, or went away, and how cloud providers can help us to provide better security, better approach to to not do this simple mistake, in fact, right?
Sure. So it's innate human nature to try to simplify things and to embed passwords in code. It's simply easy coding, lazy coding. And as I mentioned before, Google provides you in its one-stop shop, the cloud, cloud security command center, an ability to scan these cloud buckets for all the sensitive information and redact them from your storage.
All right, but in this case, you need to click this, right, and check.
True.
So
yeah, well, that's the add-on feature here. That's the feature, not the bug.
Okay, yeah. All right. So how other providers?
Ladies first. I see that Volha is unmuted, so yeah, I'm gentleman.
Yeah, thank you. About the real-time monitoring, Azure has such a function, like such a tool, I would say, actually, like Defender. This is additional monitoring in the real time. It scans all your environment, and in case of founded vulnerabilities or misconfiguration, that is the main problem, it will create an alarm, inform you, and moreover inform you how to fix it, or even has if there is a possibility, it has like easy fix button which you can press and eliminate this risk or vulnerability at your environment. Okay, this is unfortunately I don't know, this is the paid feature. And to enable it over your environment, you need to pay for this. So that is why I start with the simple out-of-the-box security center. It's also able to analyze logs and provide you the information about your configuration, but it's not so smart like Defender. It's just very simple, basic monitoring, also in the real time, but like basic one. And it doesn't provide you easy fix functionality. Okay, that is. I can also say a couple of words about Sentinel, but it's also very like tough solution with artificial intellect included in this, and it's for additional monitoring. But for the good start to protect your infrastructure, this is definitely can be Defender. And one latest word, it's not only for Azure, it can also monitor the infrastructure in on-premise and other cloud environments. Thank you.
So thanks. Azure is expanding then. So Oleg, I feel that there is a risk from Azure side to AWS. So how AWS defends themselves?
Well, if we are talking about detection part, so usually I can tell that AWS Security Hub user guide will help you just to start with your application. Mainly when you start your application, maybe AWS foundational security best practices will be the first one which you need to read. But usually I know people who, as Ahmed told us, that they like simple things, and that's why they're not following them. But as I mentioned before, that's usually if we're just trying to implement something. So we are just starting with the IAM service at AWS. And mainly if you had a look at the IAM policies, you saw that list privilege is quite important, because now you understand that what kind of services you need and what kind of permissions you need to give them, and allow or deny. But most of the people, as you know, of the bad practices in AWS and all the workshops which you can find on the YouTube for free tier. So it's like star. You are just putting it everywhere, and it's like the same as we're doing for Docker. We are just executing it under root user. So it's like the same one. It's like super user. You are just giving all the permissions, and everything is working. And after you are just making security audit and you just understand that you need to minimize the risks. So you understand that the first thing actually was in front of you at the beginning. It was IAM policies, the proper one and least privilege to be set. Yeah, and about detection, actually, I can say that, well, we have solutions implementation for automated security response on AWS, and it needs to be covered, of course. And this solution implementation is kind of, I cannot say that it's like an open source, yeah, because it's like documentation which you can open and just follow this guide. It's not like a big book, and it's kind of, you know, 1 or 2 pages. But if you read them, and it's not like the small words, so you will see that it's readable and it's understandable, and actually it's covering all the best practices. And also I can mention here guard duty. It can help you to detect suspicious activities within your AWS account if something happened. So you can just open it and get the report what's going wrong. And about trainings and monitoring, I can say that they are supporting some trainings for AWS security best practices, of course, but it's paid. And also with some free tier part, so you can just follow all these examples through the eCloud Guru, for example, or maybe any kind of plural site courses, but it will not be enough because we are talking about enterprise level. And usually if we're preparing any kind of proof of concepts under enterprise level, so we know that people like simple things, as Ahmed mentioned again. So yeah, and the good practices here, I think it's like to teach people when they're preparing any kind of proof of concept, just to be precise and just understand what they want to do and what kind of resources they need just to achieve such a goal. And with simple things, I can say that, well, you are starting AWS with IAM policies. It's not that hard to understand them. And even they have policy generator. It's quite simple, and you are just pinning and selecting any kind of resources you need, and you're just granting accesses to the resources and actions which you really required according to your boundaries of your application. Of course, maybe this generator will not be clear with all of them, but if you generated the template, it's really hard to manage that one and customize it and adjust according to your needs. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
AWS is simple. Thank you.
Yes, it's simple. And this is very good advice, not only for AWS, but for generally for everything, right? Give as less of the permissions as possible to your resources, to your users, to execute only those things which they need to execute, right? So this is the aspect, like let's say internal security, right? There are multiple tools, but we are running out of the time. So yes, as usual, when the discussion is great, it's time is flying, right? But very often, and I think a lot of applications today are, let's say, more or less web applications, right? So they are exposed to the internet, and there is a lot of threats around this. And it's not only the DOS, but also many. Well, we have 10 most problematic vulnerabilities from OWASP, right? So we know that the vectors are different, right? So how your providers are helping people to to feel secure, to help them to fight with this problem on the first line, let's say.
If I can take this question, please. So thank you, Pavel, for bringing this up. I'll touch on this point, then redirect a little bit about some points that Vol has kindly mentioned and Oleg has kindly mentioned. So Google provides Cloud Armor, and by default, Cloud Armor has pre-configured web app firewall rules that you can apply to your application in order to be in a level of, let's say, at a higher standard, at the higher industry standard. Not only that, so also it reduces threats by allowing only well-formed requests through the load balancy proxies. and also denies unwanted traffic to consume resources at the VPC level with features like IP-based, geo-based access control and adaptive protection that can, for example, prevent these denial of service, distributed denial of service attacks with machine learning systems trained locally on your app. So this is the point that you kindly brought up. I just wanted to redirect a little bit on the point that Volha has kindly brought up. Google has always been cloud agnostic, has provides you with the necessary tools. For example, if you're not satisfied with what is provided, to migrate to another provider. So it has kindly always been, let's say, generous at that aspect. A tool that is actually on a free tier and is used heavily for logging is Stackdriver, previously called Stackdriver, now called Cloud Logging, is cloud agnostic, runs freely on your environment, and does a very high in-depth level of logging and integration to built-in applications, dashboards. Also, pretty much cloud logging is, let's say, a free tier of the data warehouse, BigQuery. So you can actually route your logs into BigQuery and run simple queries to identify whatever threats or let's say audits you want to run, and have like built-in integration to analytic tools if you want to go to via this route. This is the add-on feature that BigQuery as a powerful data warehouse provides. Another point also Oleg has brought up, of course, the best practice by any cloud provider is to provide the least privilege access control. IAM that recommends leveraging, has a recommender that leverages over permissions. So it's a one-click tool that analyzes the set permissions and the recommendations as per the given resources to who has what access to what resource. So this is pretty much some of the points I wanted to bring up and where Google excels at security.
Thank you. So what about Azure and AWS?
Well, about AWS, if I can start first, Volha, are you okay with that? Yeah. So about if we're talking about infrastructure security, actually, we can learn, of course, how to leverage VPC endpoints to privately connect your VPC to support AWS services. Of course, if we're starting to talk about networking, and after that, we just teach people how to use network and IAM-based security configuration to restrict access to your AWS resources, of course. But mainly, also we can just talk about vulnerability management, and it's also included there. So you will, of course, need some guidance through tagging your resources and maintaining the assets inventory of for some governance purposes with AWS tags and system management SSM. But actually, I think I can tell that, well, we can fight about this topic quite long time. But mainly, all of that services, all our providers, I have one dark side of my career, actually. I was working with Azure too and with GCP too, so with those. And I can say that all their best practices, they are good and they're quite simple, but they're really hard to apply, especially with the cost optimization part, as you know. So usually they are selling us this product just to protect us. And usually in some cases, we are just trying just to optimize these costs, but via optimizing costs for the security part, we are also optimizing the level of security also, because it's becoming lower in some cases, because in our hands, when we're creating some workarounds, it's not really good. Of course, I can tell you about AWS that's we can just finding and addressing network misconfigurations and how to do that, but also it's like best practices and white papers. I think everyone, every engineer who is like respect himself, so he's reading all these white papers and blogs every day, not every day, every week, or maybe every month, yeah, because they are like this. But yeah, how to protect the workload or on the application, on the edge of your application. So I think we all knows all these resources, what I can say. Well, in total, I can say that we have all the similar services running under GCP and Azure, and on AWS the same. And if we're just the same thing, we can talk about the price first, because we're thinking about enterprise level. Yeah, and I'm just meeting. I meet this issue not almost every day, but every month, even with my private project at home. And the second one, what we need to talk about, I think it's not about the security level, because sometimes we have security audits like internal one, but sometimes we already know what's the pain point of our application inside of security, and that's why we are not estimating this one, and certainly, it's somewhere in our backlog, and we will do it maybe later on. Yeah, and well, yeah, that's that's what I want to cover here. So we know how to protect that one, especially we know the services and we know the tools. But of course, people, if they start to use our cloud, they need some guidance, especially with the experienced people, and especially with that pain points about the billings and also about the security cases, because we have some applications which is currently need some higher protection, and some applications on the proof of concept level, they can say that, well, we are using low level of security for now, but when they are going to MVP, so they will be higher level of security, and of course they will think about security solutions. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, very interesting. Thank you. What can I say from Azure side? Of course, obvious solution to protect your web application is web application firewall that is provided by Azure by default. Not by default, by money, as we all know. Of course, there is some maybe tough solutions that may be more cost saving, but heavily to implement it, of course. So it's always like a balance between costs and security. But I would also like to raise such a topic like unauthorized access to your application, or bad authentication provider, or not trusted authentication provider when we are talking about connecting to some applications inside your cloud. So in this case, I think I haven't worked with the other cloud providers, but I really fond of the Azure one. We have cool tool in Azure, not tool, but approach in Azure, where you can add users from the other organization, like B2B or B2C organization.
Yeah, I see some issues. Well, guys, first, so probably some internet connection or something. Let's give a couple of minutes. Yes, we hear you. You're still freezed, but we hear you.
So where you can add users from the other organization, and Microsoft, with the help of their, can even analyze how safe this user is to your application. Maybe there are some mail software installed on his or her laptop that may be harmful for your application, and Azure can prevent or at least detect such kind of access to your environment. So if you have crucial applications that is really sensitive security, then you should apply application firewall at first that protect you from the most common web attacks like security injection or bad request, whatever. And you should think about authentication and authorization of your users across your application. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. We have a quite nice question from Sharif. Which cloud service is more budget friendly without compromising security? So this is tricky, and now you need to do some gymnastics, probably.
If I can answer this point, so Google Cloud Infrastructure is secure by design. And when it comes to cost, for example, I've been working with a lot of customers in MEA as a customer engineer who wanted to migrate from other cloud providers, without naming the cloud providers, but I think we can guess. Um, the billing aspect of Google is very clear. So whenever we want to identify which service or which resource is consuming the most on GCP, GCP has an unrivaled billing report that all the clients are satisfied and happy with. Whenever we do estimates, Google also provides a free pricing calculator for people who want to be onboarded or want to move from one cloud provider to the other. Also, Google for students provides about $300 free credit for students and whoever has a Google account to try and test the complete environment without limitation up to the 300, then pauses the billing and only continues after your acknowledgement and you're satisfied with what you're getting. So in that aspect, I see Google is unrivaled with any other cloud provider when it comes to cost saving, when it comes to visibility of cost. Because true, moving from a, let's say, virtual machine and let's say data center environment to a cloud, you have to forget about your CapEx and focus on your OpEx, so your operation costs, and that's where the hidden, let's say, cost lies. But Google provides you with all the tools for you to be aware and clear on what resources are being consumed, their rate, and their price. So if you want to, let's say, move to another shut down this specific resource, you know your impact, you know your cost.
Right. So you mentioned very interesting things. Google has a focus on security by design, right? But even if we are human beings, we have a tendency to break any design, right? So nothing prevents me to open SSH to the whole world on my virtual machine, and any of cloud providers will just call me and say, hey, what you are doing, right? So do we have any tools to to maybe not only leverage this security by design, because every single cloud provider will tell us that yes, we have this principle, right? But what we can do more using services provided by our cloud providers
Sure.
to secure this.
So thank you for bringing that up, Pavel. Yes, of course, if you open, let's like rephrase it. Google manages the infrastructure. The user will manage their resources and applications. But Google doesn't leave you there in the midst. There is always at the bottom right recommender that analyzes your infrastructure, the way you set your infrastructure, and it would kind of recommend the actions to be taken. And once you find that they are feasible, because let's be clear, of course, Google or AWS or Azure are not opening charity here. They're not free will. They will sometimes charge you more to, let's say, upgrade to a bigger machine, provide more features. But that's where Google pretty much excels. It will show you exactly what needs to be done in order to fix it and how much will it impact your wallet at the end of the day.
That's cool. What about Azure in this case?
Yeah. Well, I don't believe that Azure is the cheapest solution. I haven't worked with the other cloud providers, but I don't believe that Microsoft can be cheaper. But there is out of the box, as I said, free solution security center that provide you the ability to see your misconfiguration at first step. Then you can apply policies if you are smart enough but have not so smart colleagues who are working together with you. You can define policies and prevent those users from doing what they should not do. This policy can be denied, and you can specify as many of them as you need. Well, regarding what data can be due out of the box with the least amount of money, there are several free as well solutions, like you can apply, for example, the network security groups to all of your service by default. Also, we have the policies, for example, and can configure your organization as secure as possible with the free or out of the box or cheapest tool, for example, on the Azure side, and prevent doing undesirable stuff on your organization. But if you're smart enough, of course, Microsoft has also baseline that you may follow or may configure according to your desire or needs. You can change it a bit, for example, allow something that does not allow by default, or add additional policies to prevent to keep it more secure than specified in the security baseline of Azure. But the main thing that everything is visible in the security center. You can open it, you can define your organization, check your security score, how secure your organization is, and see the risks or vulnerabilities you have in your configuration. And it's free.
Oleg?
Yep, sure. So the first, what I can say that AWS is not cheap at all. But the second one, what I can say that we are supporting also the startup security baseline, AWS SSB. And it's like a set of controls that create a minimum foundation for businesses to build securely on AWS without decreasing their agility. And we have pricing calculator where you can estimate those kind of prices when you see the solution, and it helps you a lot. But mainly, just bear in mind that you have to calculate also the services and hours, and also the performance which actually of your application. So this startup security baseline will help you just to build the security solutions without any issues. And if you follow them step by step, they will start with the simple one. It's like IAM. And as Volha said, that you need just to set up these policies if you're smart enough, but they are providing by default. And you can select even the roles which helps you. It's already predefined, and you need just to select them if you want. If you are talking about the console, because if you are working with the terminal with AWS, so it means that you are already smart enough just to have all of that, yeah, to be working. So mainly the second one will be security policies. It's inside that one, but as the latest one, it will be the same tools. It's like setting up of the WAF, and the same one will be for guard duties. And actually, they are included to the security baseline, but it's like optional model. So you can see and select from the AWS Startup Security Baseline the minimum option just to and try to calculate price first, and after that you can decide, are you going to choose AWS or not. AWS is not cheap, it's true, and I think everyone can say that. And mainly if we're talking about the startup and the option just to start some projects actually on AWS from scratch, well, we need to think about the cost as the main priority. And yeah, calculator will help you only to understand that's estimated price, but usually estimated price, it's 20 or 25% close to the real price which you have, because everything is dependent on your load, and also it depends on the resources and class of resources which you are using, like type of resources, sorry. Yeah. And mainly you can just take a look at all the white papers, but not all of them, because we have a tons of them on AWS, because a lot of people around the globe started to use AWS when it's like appear on the market, and they start to provide their first service like S3 as a bucket service, and after that all the services start to be appear. So we were the first guys, so Azure, GCP, hi. Yeah, but anyway, we still think about prices. So prices is one of the pain points, and everyone who's working with AWS, they're thinking about cost optimization. And cost optimization, it's kind of painful sometimes, but it's interesting if you're playing with that one for a long time. So if you want, we can share some of the best practices how to do that. But then one of the good step, I think it will be just to follow AWS Startup Security Baseline. Thank you.
Yep, thank you very much.
If I can add just one point here. So I believe Google provides value. So unlike other cloud providers, Google has heavily invested in its infrastructure to achieve a more secure environment through, for example, but not limited, Google has a large specialized data network to link all of its data centers together uh, so that the content can be replicated across multiple sites for resilience, and services can be delivered closest to the end user by a global meshed network that is the Google funded network, fiber network, that connects edge point to, of presence to data centers. And that's the same network that delivers your favorite free social network platform, YouTube.
All right. So that makes sense. So now, Oleg, you are challenged. We have a question about AWS here. Not really about AWS, but it starts with AWS. So AWS is near to help us in case of the DDoS attack on services. So first, I would like to and very shortly, like 1-2 sentences here, because we are running out of the time, unfortunately. Is it right for AWS, and what we have in Azure and GCP for this case?
Well, I can say that Alexei is right, almost, because if it's not automated, DevOps services and AWS Shield, so most probably you will be affected against those attacks in the first point. And I cannot say that's it's not true. Then AWS will protect you. Yeah, they will, but they have like response time, and actually that response time is totally affected your application. So your application will be dead until that moment when they operate. So you need to automate this process. So you just, if you want to prevent that one, so you need to think about the solution, how to do that. There are a lot of like best practices how to do that. Unfortunately, I didn't see some of them really efficient, totally efficient, 100%. So some of them, they are just causing some of the disadvantages. Like, they will be totally weak and totally helpless during the first hours of DDoS attack. That's for sure. It's a fact, unfortunately. So I didn't see such a solution which is like 100%. Of course, there is a solution which is provided, but I think it's too expensive, and no one will take that one. So yeah. And Ahmed, Volha, do you have such kind of 100% solution which will be totally cost optimized? Yeah, just to protect you against DDoS attacks.
True, but yeah, Google has Cloud Armor. Let's talk about that. So Cloud Armor, by let's say, parts of its main functionality is to protect from DDoS attacks by reducing, as we mentioned, threats by allowing only the well-formed requests through the load balancer. Also, it denies unwanted traffic to consume the resources, as we said, at the VPC level, and gives you IP filtering, geo-based access control, adaptive protection, and we've mentioned also, as an example, help prevent these DDoS attacks with a machine learning system that is trained. And by default, provides the pre-configured web application firewall rules. So overall, yeah, GCP via Cloud Armor does protect you specifically from denial of service, distributed denial of services attacks.
Okay, thank you. And final word from Azure.
Okay, yeah. Yes, Azure also has solution like the DOS protector, and it's not cheap, definitely. But there is the pros of using this, because when you have the DOS attack, you may see the wider resource usage at your application from the first time when the attack is detected, and it may lead to scaling your environment in case of this attack. And for example, during the DDoS attack, your environment was scaled and you need to pay for additional instance, for example. But if you have DDoS protector, you don't have to pay for this. Your environment was scaled. Your attack was detected after, no, not immediately, would say, not after some time, but not in the first seconds, let's say. And your money for the additional resources will be back.
Same
So-
from my side. So sorry for interrupting, but yeah, I can say that WAF and AWS Shield will help you, but the main thing is the cost. So you need to pay anytime when they are just enabled and automation is enabled. So you're paying for that. And if they are enabled and DDoS attack happens, so it's worth its price. But vice versa, just imagine you're paying it for all the time and no DDoS attack happened. And it means that you need to think about some cost optimization, but they are not too cheap or not too even on the medium level. You are paying so much. And here, when Alexei just asked, usually we are having them, and they said, like, according to the advertisement of the service, this service will help you to protect you, and if you have it, of course you can pay for that one, and you are totally protected. But usually, if we are talking about the small businesses, they're totally weak against DDoS attacks because they're not ready to pay for such services. Of course, we can say, I don't know the exact price for the Cloud Armor because maybe it's going by default and it's included inside the prices. But I think if the big DDoS attacks coming to the one of your services, you cannot 100% sure that it will not be dead after a couple of minutes after DDoS attack. Of course, we have all this IP filtering, all this application load balances. The options and configuration are totally similar to each other. Even I can say, because I was working with Terraform and actually I see how those providers working, so they are supporting the same properties. But if we are talking about DDoS attacks, so yeah, I see also Cloudflare, but I cannot say that it also works because I don't know how Cloudflare works. But yeah, about GCP and Azure and AWS, we have the similar structure, and usually it's like about money. Sorry.
Right. So concluding, security in cloud is not cheap but necessary. Thank you very much to all of you for joining our discussion panel, and great discussion. As our discussion was really cool, we took the whole break. So now we need to jump to the last talk of the evening. So I want to welcome Przemek, who will talk about Azure and some security stuff related to Azure. So I believe, I believe you have a presentation. So you can share your screen, and we can start your presentation. I'm waiting for
Thanks. Thanks, Paweł, for inviting me. And let me share the screen first. Yeah. So I will share the entire screen and show you the presentation, guys. So please let me know if you can see the presentation now. Probably you will see the presenter mode, which is not the best one.
Yes, it's not the best one, but it works. So
yeah, so let me fix it then, because truly I am using this tool for the first time.
yeah, it may be a little bit confusing at the beginning, but we can manage.
No, I guess I will upload the file first. Give me a sec to be prepared. Okie doke. Just give me a sec. Okay, it's uploading. Hopefully it will be in a sec available. It shows processing.
Yeah, I see it. I'm adding this to the stream. So yes, we are on air with your presentation. So I'm removing myself, and the stage is yours.
Yeah, thanks, Paweł, for that. And hello, everybody, and thank you for joining at such late time, at least late in Poland. So today I want to talk something about the KeyVault integration with Azure resources in terms of the security, because as you probably know, KeyVault is a really nice security feature, really nice security service which is available on the Azure site. My name is Przemyslaw Chmielecki. As you can see, I'm lead systems engineer in EPAM systems. So yeah, let's roll it. And in the very beginning, I want to start from the quote from Terry Pratchett. If you want to carry your head in the clouds, which we are doing because we are preparing the cloud presentation, then you have to keep both feet on the ground. And of course, there's the security perspective, because as you know, the security is the way of doing things in a secure, safe way, right? Meaning that it needs to be not only robust, not only performing well, but you need to be also on the safe side. So you need to be on the ground, I would say. So that's why if you wanted to have your data and your application in the cloud, you truly need to take care of the security. And how can we do with it? So the agenda for today is the short introduction, then the KeyVault overview, integration of the KeyVault with some various of services, in this case ADO, Azure DevOps, and then app services, function apps, and AKS, which is the star of this presentation. Then the Q&A and used resources to be on the good side of the law. So introduction. The rules which I wanted to present to you. I always do in this way, so just wanted to be very clear that this will be the conversational formula, and I really count that you will ask some questions, that you will ask some, topics or consider some topics which are interesting for you in terms of the security and the KeyVault and the Azure topics. Yeah. On the chat. Thanks, Paweł, for that. Questions and discussions. I really want to put this in the end of the presentation. We'll probably have some time for it. and I wanted to combine theory with the practice. Of course, because of the terms, because of the time limit which we have, I'm not able to present it on the portal to you or develop live to you, but rather I wanted to present some chunks of the code and explain how it works and how it looks in practice. Is it okay for you, guys? More or less. If
Yes,
I
it
not
should be.
if I not hear any complainings, I assume that it's okay. So let's meet. I don't know if you know me. Of course, guys from the EPAM know me well, and I'm simply the lead systems engineer and at EPAM. I got the DevSecOps mindset. I'm not the DevSecOps because DevSecOps is not the position in a sharp way, but it is the mindset, the philosophy. And I like to learn, as you probably can see based on those certifications. And yeah, the security is combined is inside my DNA, I would say, because normally for the last 10 years when I'm working on the IT side, more or less, I'm always trying to be on the secure side as well, not only on the performant way, but also the security is in my heart. So I really enjoy it, and I really encourage you to be on the security side as well. And how we can do it, the security side in Azure, the KeyVault. The KeyVault is the key service here, because the KeyVault is the service which is the central service in Azure to store all of the secrets, certificates, and all of those stuff which are not publicly available. So if you wanted to provide some secure data, some configuration elements which are not publicly available, you definitely should use KeyVault. By the way, I see that the pix goes to the T, right? I don't know why it is moving like this, because on my presentation it was correctly formatted, but yeah, just please ignore it. So the key vault is a secure way to store any kind of secrets. If you wanted to store the secret, the password, the kind of like this, that's cool. If you wanted to store as well some elements like certificates or part of the certificates, the public, private, whatever you want to store, you can do it in the key vault, and you can have the access to this specific secret placed in the key vault from the very various resources, very various services in the Azure side, in the Azure world, I would say. Of course, you can do it from the portal as if you wish. You can do it from the Cloud Shell, Azure CLI. You can also do it as a API calls. Whatever you wanted to have, you can connect to KeyVault to retrieve all those information what is needed. But it's not everything. So what you need to have as well, you need to have the access policies, which allows you to access your secrets, right? Which allows to access those secrets, those certificates, those sensitive data to the specific person. It could be the user, of course, could be the group of users, and could be also the technical user or service account or whatever we call it, right? So in those three cases you can use KeyVault to access your data. One more thing, which was, I don't know if it was probably said by the guys previously, because on AWS and in GCP there is a similar service. KeyVault is supporting HSM, hardware security module, which allows you uh, to encrypt the data, not software encryption, but the hardware encryption, which is much more harder, much more secure. Of course, you can choose it from the portal. You can choose by this or that way of securing stuff. So yeah, that's the KeyVault overview. In short, just to understand you, and please remind this picture because it will be used in the future. If you are the developer, if you are the user, you can retrieve your elements if you are particular specific permissions here, right? So if there is specific policy which allows you to retrieve the secret, that's very key on the KeyVault. In terms of integration, let's face the first element, which is the ADO, Azure DevOps, right? So Azure DevOps is a kind of service which allows you to keep your code, to build the code from the pipeline and deploy it to the any resources you wanted to. You can if you wanted to deploy your code to the virtual machine, you can do it. If you wanted to deploy it to the function app as well, you can do it. As well as the app services, which we of course will discuss in few minutes. But in here, what was the key perspective is that in Azure DevOps you can integrate the KeyVault by default. So how it looks like? If you got the command line in this particular example, if you have the command line to echo the secret, right? You can do it from in this case, from the Azure pipeline. So in Azure pipeline, you need to have the KeyVault connection, right? To get the access to the specific resource, because we need to keep in mind that Azure platform, or the portal, which the Azure portal, which contains a lot of services, that's one word, and the another word is Azure DevOps, which is one of the services in Microsoft Word, in Microsoft perspective, but they are two portals. You cannot simply connect or retrieve information between those resources. So you need to create this kind of connection, right? And based on this, you can, in this particular example, use the CMD to retrieve your secret, or save your secret into the artifact, which is the secret txt. If you wanted to, if you need this, that of course you can use it. That's a very simple integration. Let's face another example, which is the integration with the Azure DevOps again, but in a more smart way. This way is the variable group, and you can link KeyVault here. How it goes? So if you recall the previous example, you need to create the connection to the KeyVault, right? But in here you don't need to, because from the library perspective, in the configuration of the Azure DevOps pipeline in particular, you are adding the variable group, which refers to secrets from the KeyVault, and here you have your KeyVault name. So for instance, if you have the KeyVault which retrieves some, I don't know, connection string, which contains some user name or whatever is needed inside, which of course is rather the secret, right? And you wanted to have it not to store it not publicly, so you use KeyVault, and you don't want to refer in particular in the Azure DevOps pipeline to retrieve this secret. You can use the variable group and then automatically connect in the background to the KeyVault and retrieve the secret, right? Of course, you can as well store it or save it in the file and store it in the artifact if you need, but you can also use it dynamically in the application configuration, right? If you wanted to, let's say, run some application on the app service or function app, and if you wanted to inject the secret, then you can do it based on this variable group, which is much more smarter way to do it in the Azure DevOps. Yeah, and here we have the access to the pipeline. Of course, more examples of the same configuration of the group, of the library group, as I said previously. So in here you can see that you just got the connection string, or you got the resource group name, right? And in here you can see in the variable groups that those are available from here, and even you cannot see it, right? It's not it's not a way to see it from pipeline. So if you wanted to even echo it, right, in for some reason, if you wanted to do it, then you will see stars like in here in the pipeline. So it's much more smart, much more secure if you wanted, if you for some of the reason need to print it out, right? It will not be printed out in a plain text, but in a start way. So that's also the nice way to do it. So another thing is the function up, and then of course we will move to this app service, right? So function up first, and in here, which will be the very similar mechanism which behind the scenes will retrieve all the secrets. It is the manage identity. So it of course works not only with function up, but a bunch of services, AKS as well, but I will not put any more information today about the AKS configuration and managed identity because it's not needed now. But keep in mind that if you wanted to have the most secure way in Azure to got the authorization of the resources to to connect with other resources, if those resources of course will support managed identity, then the managed identity is totally the best choice here. So if you wanted to have the system assign or user assign managed identity, which will of course I will not explain it now because we do not have time, but you can use managed identity as a way, or as a third, maybe not third party, but another layer of security, uh, which will exchange the information with the Azure Active Directory and the resources. In short, it will work in this way that your service, for this in this example, it will be the function app. Your service will have the connection to manage identity, right, which we can see here, and this managed identity will have the connection to Azure Active Directory to receive a token, right, and not to store any password, any username, whatever is needed, because in managed identity there is no such thing like user or password or any other credentials, but you have only the one-time token, right, which token will be valid only for certain amount of time, and after it it will be removed, right, and you can get another token if of course Azure Active Directory will provide you this token. So in short, it works like this, that your application is connecting through the managed identity to the Azure Active Directory, which provides the token, and Azure Active Directory can provide the token based on the amount of privileges which your application, in this case managed identity, have to this or that resources, in our case KeyVault. So if you wanted to have to connect the function app with KeyVault, then your managed identity need to be authorized to have this access, and if you have it, then you can use it very smoothly without any more configuration using the managed identity. Yeah, of course, how it looks like in here, we have the application settings, but there's another way to have the connection with the function app or with the app services, right? So um, you can put or inject the secrets from the KeyVault in this case to the configuration of the application in the application settings, but it can be also done from the managed identity, as I said. And the man of the hour for today, because I know we need to stop at in 10 minutes sharp, so I will be quick. The man of the hour is the AKS, and the AKS is pretty complex, I would say, because in here, in those representatives of the YAML files or manifest files, we can see that we do have a few elements. So first things first, the default Kubernetes secret management is stored in base 64. which is discussable because some of the users will say, yeah, that's a good approach. And the more senior persons who knows how to use the B64 will say, yeah, it's maybe not the best, right? But this is the default native Kubernetes secret management. So in short, the first YAML, the first manifest, in here we do have the kind of secret, right? So the secret is the special kind in Kubernetes to store any secrets, right? Or store any sensitive data. So we have the username, you have the password, which is of course the base 64 encrypted, right? Or encoded rather. So this is a thing, this is a kind which lives in the Kubernetes world. So if you have the access to the Kubernetes cluster, and if you can view all of the elements, all of the components which are deployed here, then you can also see this kind of secret. And that's why it's not the best thing to be. How we use this kind of secrets, like in here we have the pod which got the container, blah blah blah, and which is the most important thing, which got the volume mounts, right? And which got the secret name, which is my secret, right? And my secret also need to be referred in named like in here, right? So we in here, in this example of the pod, we are mounting the volume and we are using the secret name secret, which is in here, my secret, right? So simply we are mounting this secret to this pod, right? And that's the default, the native one mechanism of using the secrets in Kubernetes. And here is the more more secure, more complex, definitely, but also nice way to integrate the Kubernetes. In this case, Azure Kubernetes Services AKS, right, with the KeyVault, which we are talking now about. So, in simple words, what do we have here? We do have another pod, right, which has the connection to the specific volume mounts, in this case secret one. And in here we are not configuring any secrets in the Kubernetes world. We are not doing this because all of our stuff which is needed, it is already in the KeyVault, right? As I described previously, the KeyVault is the central place to store the secrets, to store the certificates, and any other sensitive data which will be not publicly available. So the KeyVault in here already have all those needed secrets which we wanted to use, in this case in the Kubernetes. So how it is configured, we are providing a special secret provider class, which YAML definition I will not provide here because there will be a lot of lines of codes to put on the slide, and this might be a bit blurry for us. So I will explain how it works. In short words, we are providing special kind, which is secret provider class, which is the kind which is the kind dedicated to connect to the KeyVault in general. So if we deploy this kind, then this is available to be access. This can be can provide the access to the KeyVault, like we see, if of course we agreed based on the Azure KeyVault access policies. If we agreed that yes, we are allowing Kubernetes to have access to the KeyVault. So even if we provide this storage provider class and we do not allow the special permissions on the KeyVault side, then it will not work. So definitely we need to carry on the KeyVault side, and then we need to provide this secret provider class. And this secret provider class, how it works? It works in this way that it will allow to mount special volume on the pod or on the deployment replica set, whatever we need on the Kubernetes world. So In short words, if we have some endpoints like pod, deployment, replica set, whatever, then we can use this mount path. And of course, we need to provide this driver, and this driver is exactly this what I explained in a minute. So secret provider class, and this driver will allow us to connect from this pod to this volume, which will brings us to the secrets in read-only mode from the Azure KeyVault. So we are not able to update any secrets or delete any secrets. We can only collect those secrets and inject them in a place where we need those, right? I know that we need to finish. So do you have any question, guys? I know that we have, I don't know, minute or so, or two maybe.
Yes, we have time for one question. I'm sorry for not giving you much more time.
Yeah,
I
understood.
really want to. Next time. So,
Any question,
any questions
guys?
to Przemek?
Assume that people were slept by this.
Or I will go different way. So you explained everything so clearly. There is no questions at all, and I will stay with this opinion. So Przemek,
Okay.
thank you
So
very
use
much.
resources, and thank you from my side. I was really
Yes.
pleased to present this to you and be part of this really nice experience. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Przemek. Thank you all of you for joining us, and I hope you spent your time fruitfully, and the information we provided to you will help you in the future. So thank you very much again. See you in some time on the Cloudy Talks 2.
Yep. Thanks for that.
Thank you,
Cheers, guys.
everyone. Have a good rest of the day. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.